Hello, I'm Sophie and today we are looking at the hot posts from /MaliciousCompliance. In today's first story, someone steals a P's bed so they end up losing their stuff. My uni had a dorm for foreign exchange students. It was intended for short-term residency and lacked many of the amenities of other dorms. The dorm was divided into pods, each with 4 or so rooms attached to a common kitchen and bathroom. It was 4+ people to a room, no privacy, no locks, no real rules. You were assigned to a pod, but they didn't bother assigning beds, so you just took one and worked it out among yourselves. But rent was cheap, €150 or so local students also took advantage. Waters were tight, but people more or less got along. However, there was one girl who was just the definition of entitled. She would buy enough groceries for a family of 4, stuff the communal fridges full of her food, then leave it to rot, and freak out at anyone who dared move her things or throw out her rotten food. She would shamelessly take someone else's laundry out of running machines, put her stuff in the machine instead, and leave the other person's wet laundry in a heap on the floor wherever. To make matters worse, she apparently felt entitled to the best room or bed or whatever, and would routinely move to another student's bunk, dumping their stuff in the hall. Why this behavior was permitted to continue is beyond me, but whatever, it was uni. Each pod had a resident advisor, essentially a student mentor responsible for ordering repairs and babysitting. The RA got their own room with a locking door. Our RA graduated at the end of my 3-year year and vacated her room over the summer. Entitled jerk immediately moved in. Unfortunately for me, I was assigned as the new RA. I got the news less than a week before the end of my summer session. I told entitled jerk to move out. The resident manager told her to move out. Other people warned her. Her response: "Don't any of you dare touch my fucking stuff." She decided to go for a long weekend with some friends to get away from the hostile environment. Thing is, my classes were over and I was going home to my parents for the rest of the summer. My parents lived about 10 hours away by train, and I wasn't about to drag my stuff home with when I had a perfectly good locking room. I texted entitled jerk one last time, asked her what she wanted me to do with her things. "Don't you dare, my stuff stays." Well, that seems reasonable to me. So I got a couple of boxes from the resident manager, gently packed up her things, stowed them under my bed, moved my stuff in, and locked up. I got a furious text message a few days later demanding to know if I had locked her room. Reminded her that this was my room. She demanded to know where her things were. "Well, you told me to leave them, so I did." Told her that she was welcome to pay for a train ticket for me to come back, unlock my room, let her collect her things, and GTFO. She declined. Told me that if I wanted to come back, I'd need to pay for my own ticket. Well, given that I did not want to come back, I passed on her offer and stayed gone for the next 4 weeks. She had to wrap up her studies with 4 days' worth of clothes. Her computer was locked in my room, and as far as I know, she didn't even have a blanket and pillow. Never saw her again. Her parents got her stuff when I returned. In tonight's second story, P is told that they need to be out of the shop within 15 minutes of closing. Long-time lurker, first-time poster, so I hope you all enjoy my little story that I was quite proud of, and sorry if it is poorly written. So I used to work as a manager for a very large pizza chain that is franchised. And the franchisee at my particular store happened to be a supreme penny pincher to the point where our broom broke a year ago and they're still using it. So generally after we close, it takes us anywhere from 10 minutes to 90 minutes to get the store cleaned up and all the next day prep done depending on how busy we've been that day. It's always busy. Now the franchisee who runs the store is not happy with how long it takes us to do all this. It costs him too much, he says, and had been complaining to me incessantly about how we all need to be done with our work and clocked out within 15 minutes of closing. Something that is completely impossible 99% of the time. My record is 10 minutes for the quickest time and 2.5 hours for the longest, if anyone wanted to know. One day, after hearing him complain for the umpteenth time about how we take too long and how he could easily get it all done alone far faster than my team, I decided, okay, We'll be out within 15 minutes from closing. This particular day, however, was Christmas Eve. This is one of our most chaotic days of the year due to the combination of people who want pizza for the occasion, which is a ton, and lack of staff due to most of them saying they can't work over Christmas, as managers usually have to double our hours over Christmas to keep the place running. So as expected, we have an absolutely chaotic day with everything running behind all while being understaffed and swamped in orders. And then closing time comes. The franchisee has long gone home, leaving me with my 2 co-workers to close up, and the store is an utter mess. Usually I get most stuff done before we even close, but there hadn't been a single opportunity that day. So the floor is littered with food and rubbish, and the stack of dishes to do is 4 people high, literally 4 piles a person high each. So I tell my co-workers to sweep and mop the floor while I blitz through all the cash counting and end-of-day paperwork, and we get all that done in about 10 minutes. Now we're standing there with the pile of dishes and all the next day prep to be done, and I look at them and say, well guys, the boss wants us out within 15 minutes. I guess we don't have time to do all this, and with that we leave. So the next day, which is of course Christmas, we are closed and can't work, but the boss decided to go in that morning and check everything was done correctly. I of course get a message from him wanting to know why nothing is done, and I just give him my professional reply. I made sure we were out of there within 15 minutes. Just like you wanted. I found out a couple days later from a co-worker that he had spent his entire Christmas day there doing all the cleaning and prep work on his own to get the store ready for Boxing Day. Something me and my team could have done in a couple hours. All because he wanted us out of the store quickly at night to save money. He never complained about how long we took again. He did. Just want to say that the boss is a nice guy overall. He's just really cheap and has no business sense. In tonight's third story, a P was told that they were too uneducated to do their job. When I was a teaching assistant, I used to work as a substitute teacher for very unruly classes occur. The classes licensed teachers wouldn't accept. I had full responsibility, worked all hours, and my numbers showed that my class was making great progress. I just had some bad luck that caused me to not finish teaching college at that time. Because I didn't have my license, my boss came to me one day and talked about how I was actually too uneducated and inexperienced to teach, and that I must have had someone telling me what to do behind me. I told her I didn't, but she didn't believe me and told me she'll be watching me like an eagle to see if I was fraudulent changing grades and stuff. I never did anything to my students. I'm not a cruel person, and I didn't want anyone implying that I wasn't doing my job. As expected, they all got to the next year with scores higher than we would have expected beforehand. But I started to behave like a beginner student teacher to my boss, only asked really stupid questions like, how can I make my class quiet? I'm really too uneducated to know, so can you please help this teacher out by showing it? Knowing fully well that my formerly disruptive class wouldn't ever listen to her. I called her for everything. A parent wanting to talk to me, a kid who fell down and needed a band-aid, anything. I made sure to tell her I was too uneducated and inexperienced to handle such a task, and I needed to observe a true pro work. My colleagues got in on it too. They started pointing out everything I wasn't allowed to do, but expected to do, and told my boss that she was being very fraudulent by expecting me to do so. In the meantime, I was discussing gamification, the need for programming and English in primary school, showing older colleagues new teaching methods and digital assistants, all the goodies. After 6 weeks, she was done. She called me to her office and apologized to me for saying that I was too uneducated and inexperienced, and how she was renewing my contract and got some budget to pay for half of my studies. I was happy to tell her I got a new job that would pay everything to get me my license, and I would get full creative freedom, without being watched like an eagle. This was 2 years ago. I almost have my license, and I still work at that awesome school that hired me. After the allegations of being uneducated and inexperienced at my old job, I even got a reward and a trophy from the board for doing exceptional work and obtaining goals with my students. We have a story in the comments of someone in primary school. Yes, we had a library at primary school, and it was basically have at it. It was full of different kinds of books, and I quickly found out I loved fantasy books. I'd go through 2-3 books a week. I even had a pocket dictionary at home, and I'd get so excited to find words I didn't know, and I used to write them down in a little book. I got into some interesting young adult books that probably shouldn't have been in a primary school library. But I still remember a series, Tomorrow, When the War Began, where I learnt the word cumbersome when a character was describing walking in crutches.